Hello everyone. Can we start? Let me share my screen. Is my screen visible, right? So in the last session, what we did, we discussed about the concepts of exception handling, right? So what is an exception handling? What are the different types of exceptions? So these all things we discussed. Okay. We also discussed that what is a try catch block, how to work with try catch block. Okay. And what are the different types of exception which generally occurs when you are working over here. Okay. And then also we discussed that what are the different types of exception you will face. You will face array index out of bound exception, you will face arithmetic exception, you will face null pointer exception. Okay, and how to handle these all exceptions also we have discussed. Okay, now what we can do is, suppose in a same program what we are doing, we can have multiple exceptions being there. Okay, suppose I'm creating a new class. Inside this, suppose you have written a code int a is equal to new int, suppose 5. This you have written. Okay, and then you are doing what? You are writing a 7 is equal to 100. Okay, in the same code what you are doing, you are writing int x is equal to 10 by 0. How many types of exceptions are there? If I'll print sys out x, if I'll print sys out a7, how many types of exception will be there? There are two exceptions over here. Okay, one is called as, and this is an array index out of bound exception. This is a arithmetic exception, divide by 0. Okay, when we will handle this exception, then in that case, what I should write, I'll write a single try catch try block over here, try. Okay, and then I will add a catch block, catch exception e. Okay, let system.out.println e, suppose. And there is that piece of cake, the happy piece of code which will always get executed. Okay, I'll run this program. You see, it is just giving you one exception. Okay, it is just recognizing this array index out of bound exception. Why it is doing like that? It is doing like that because when it went to the first line, it got an exception, so it is not moving to this line. Okay, but I also want to see this exception also. Okay, I also want to see that number format exception. Over here, it is only showing you one exception. Okay, suppose there is 200 lines of code. Okay, this is only 3 lines of code I have written. Suppose there are 200 lines of code. In that 200 lines of code, there can be 10 exceptions. Okay, so if you resolve one exception in the next line, again you will get another exception. Again, if you resolve another exception, you will in the next line, suppose you are getting another exception. So in this way, how many times you will resolve? And a single execution suppose take 10 minutes. Okay, so if you resolve one by one, it will take 100 minutes. It will waste your 100 minutes, right? So in order to do that, what I will write, if there are multiple exceptions occurring into the same piece of a code, then in then in that case, what you can do, you can put a single try block. Okay, you will put a single try block, but you have to put multiple catch statements over here. In that case, you have to write the name also. So first I'm catching the array index out of bound exception. So I'll write array index out of bounds exception. Okay. This I will write. In the next case, you're also catching which exception? You're catching this exception, right? Arithmetic exception. So I'll write in the same way in this line. Is it clear? Is it clear? Now, in this case, what will happen when you will execute it? It will not give you output as 2. Okay, it will not give you twice the same statement. Okay, it will not give you twice the same statement. Why? Because whenever there are multiple exceptions being occurring into the same piece of a code, then it will follow a specific hierarchy. Okay, there is something called as a parent exception, there is something called as a child exception. Okay, so that is why when multiple piece of code is you have written, in that case, though there are many exceptions being occurring, if you just handle one, it will be you don't have to miss. Even if you are catching multiple exception, it will be able to caught only one single exception. Okay, so this is called as a multiple catch block. That means we can also conclude from here that in a program, we can have only one try block, but we can have multiple catch block. But once an exception has been caught, the other set of exceptions, even if you are caughting that exception in the console, you will not get that value. Is it clear? Is it clear, right? Am I clear to everyone? So what we can say, at a time only one exception occur, and at a time only one catch block will get executed. Okay, and all the catch block will be ordered from most specific to most general. Okay, so all the different catch block will be ordered from us. It will follow a specific hierarchy. Okay, all the catch blocks will follow a specific hierarchy. So this is called as a multi-catch block statement. Am I clear, right? Next then. So this is all about your try-catch block. Okay, so this is all about your try-catch block. Next, we have something called as a throw clause. Okay, next we have something called as a throw clause. So what is a throw clause? So there are cases, okay, there are cases, that means why we are throwing an exception, so that we are getting the happy piece of code is running as expected, right? The happy piece of code is running as expected. So that is why we are throwing an exception. So so there are cases when we know that in this place the exception may occur, or we want to manually throw an exception so that the next line of code should not get executed. Okay, suppose a specific condition is there. Suppose you are going to cast your vote. Okay, you are going to cast your vote, but if your age is less than 18 years, I'll not allow you to cast the vote. This is not possible. So I know that I have to check a condition, and after that means there is a polling booth. Okay, at the entrance of the polling booth only your age is being verified. You came to the the polling booth managers came to know that your age is less than 18, so they will not allow you to enter inside the polling booth and cast your vote. Okay, that means if your age is greater than 18, then and only then you will be able to cast your vote. If your age is less than 18, then at that moment only I want to explicitly, or I want to manually throw a statement over there that you are not allowed to visit the polling booth. Okay, so in those cases when we will know that when we want to explicitly or manually throw an exception, so in that cases we will use this we will use this throw block. Okay, in those cases we will use this throw clause. Okay, so whenever you are writing a throw clause, you must use a new keyword over here, because we are creating an exception at that specific point, right? Let us see an example. Okay, so what I want to do over here, I want to simply create a static method over here. Okay, inside a class, I'll simply write public void static check age. Okay, this I want to write. I'll write over here as int a. Okay, a is your age. Suppose I'm writing a condition over here. If a less than 18, okay, if your age is less than 18, then I want to throw an exception. So how will you manually or explicitly throw an exception? You'll write throw new arithmetic exception. Okay, if you want to throw an exception explicitly or manually, you have to write this throw. I'll write over here, you are not eligible. Clear? If your age is less than 18, I want to throw a statement that you are not eligible. Else I'll write what else? Suppose your age is more than 18. Okay, else sys out, you can enter and poll your both. You can enter and poll your vote. Enter and cast your vote, suppose. Okay, so this is the statement which I have written over here. Next, I want to do what? I want to check whether I want to validate my age. Okay, I want to check my age. So what I will do, I will write over here as this check age is there, right? So I'll write over here public. Sorry. Okay, so what I will do, I'll simply want to check my age. So I'll call this function, I'll write check age. Okay, check age, suppose 20. So check age 20 means what? Your age is perfect. Okay, your age is perfect. And then suppose I have written a piece of code over here. Suppose this piece of code is that you entered inside the polling booth and you casted your vote. Suppose int x is equal to 10 plus 1. Suppose. Okay, that means you casted your vote, so the total vote will increase by 1. Suppose that piece of code is written over here. So if I'll execute this, you see you can enter and cast your vote and the value got increased by 1. Okay, you casted your vote because your age was this. Okay, but suppose your age is not, your age is less than 18. Suppose your age is 15 years. I want to put the condition in that case. Suppose your age is 15 years, so I want to put the condition in that case. So suppose I'll run this. So what will happen? You see an exception has been thrown over here, because I don't want you to cast the vote. I don't want that if your age is less than 18, I don't want you to cast the vote. So that is why I have threw an exception over here. So what I can say for a throw clause, if you want to manually or explicitly throw an exception, then in that case only you will throw that specific exception. Is it clear to everyone? Any confusion over here? Which kind of exception is this? Checked exception or unchecked exception? Which kind of exception is this one? This is an unchecked exception. So what we can say that with the help of a throw clause, what we can do, we can throw an unchecked exception. Okay, we can throw an unchecked exception. We can also throw checked, and we can also throw a checked exception also. Okay, so when you are throwing a checked exception, so in that case, suppose I am creating a new function. Okay, so understood, right? So how to throw an unchecked exception? So over here, I explicitly threw an exception. Okay, so sometimes a user want to manually or explicitly throw an exception, so that the user can do with the help of this throw clause. What is, how can I throw a checked exception? Let us see. Throw clause using for checked exception. Okay, so I'll do this. So what I will do, so what is a throw except, what is example of a checked exception? File not found exception. These are all the examples of your throw exception. So what I will write, I have the data from a filelet. So this object I'll simply call. Suppose I'll write this piece of code over here. Okay, I'll create a method over here. I'll create a static method, public static void m. Okay, this is a method I have created. I'll put this over here. Okay, so as soon as I put the code over here, you see it is asking you to, throw an exception. So this kind of exception is what? If there is a checked exception, then in that case, what you will do, the compiler will itself suggest you that there is an exception and you have to handle that. Suppose if I'll add a throw statement, you see, this is a checked exception which is coming over here. Clear, right? Now, suppose over here the file is still the file is present, okay, but I want to throw, suppose I explicitly made this path as wrong. Okay, suppose there is no such file, suppose test9.txt, there is no such file being present, so obviously it will throw an exception over here. Okay, so obviously it will throw an exception over here. So what I will do, I will simply add what? I'll simply add a throw statement inside this, that throw new that means over here I am explicitly throwing an exception, because I don't know that whether this path is correct or incorrect. Okay, if the path is correct, then it will go on reading the file, but suppose I don't know, okay, whether this path is correct or not correct, and after that a specific piece of code is written. Okay, so over here, suppose a line of code is written, int x is equal to 10 plus 20. This is your happy piece of code. Says out x. Okay, okay, now this it will not allow over here. Suppose I am writing sys out okay, this is inside this, it will not allow to you to. Okay, suppose such kind of thing is being there, so now I'll do what? I'll simply call this method. This is a static method, so I'll simply call this method over here, m, inside my this, so I'll write m. Okay, so this m, since, okay, so in this file we had a we had a file not found exception. So this method already has threw an exception, that is file not found exception. Okay, if I'm calling the same method, into a different inside my main method, so I again have to handle the same piece of code. If I'm throwing the same code inside my public static void main, I have to handle this specific, I have to again add a throws declaration over here. Okay, then only it will work. Now suppose I am running this. You see there is no such file named as this one, test9.txt, and nothing is working in that case. So I don't know that whether this file is correct or not correct. Okay, I have no idea that whether this file is correct or not correct. So over here I'm explicitly, so every time it is going to throw you an exception over here. Okay, because I don't know that whether this file is correct or not correct. Okay, so that is why that specific, I am explicitly throwing an exception every time. Okay, every time I am explicitly throwing an exception. So over here, suppose you have a happy piece of code. Okay, suppose you have written sys out hello. Okay, sys out hello. Now suppose when you have done like this, right? So in this method already is throwing an exception. So obviously this piece of code will never get executed because we have explicitly thrown an exception. Always it will throw. Okay, it will always throw an exception. But suppose I want to this line to get executed. I want this line to get executed. So what I will do, I'll put this line under a try catch block. Okay, I'll do what? I'll put this entire thing inside a try catch block. Okay, clear? And then I will catch this. Catch exception E, sys out exception got, and I'll write plus of E. Okay, and after this that piece of code is written. Okay, so what happened in this case? So there was I want to access a specific file. Okay, I want to access a specific file, but I always want to throw an exception over here. Okay, I always, whether the file is there or not there, so that is not my concern. I always want to throw an exception in this case, that every time it will throw file not found exception, but I want the remaining set of code to always get executed. Okay, I want this remaining set of code to always get executed. So what I can do, I can, if I'll run this, you see this exception has got caught over here. Okay, and it is working fine as expected. Is it clear? Is it clear, right? Any confusion? That means throw is basically used when you want to explicitly or manually throw an exception. If you want to forcibly throw an exception, and then in those cases, you will use the throw clause. Is it clear for everyone? Any confusion? Just write Y in the chat window. Is it clear for everyone? Okay, let me, you are not responding, anyone is not clear. Okay. So there are cases, right? There are cases when you want to manually throw an exception. Okay, there will be cases where we want to, yeah, for throw checked exception, the Java, your Eclipse will have an intelligence operation, right? So it will always throw an exception. In case of checked exception, right? In case of checked exception, that means that type of exception is occurring during the time of compilation, right? So the Java compiler will automatically throw an exception at that specific point. Okay, You don't have to do anything. It will automatically throw an exception over here. Okay. Why we use throw clause? Throw clause is basically being used if I want to always throw an exception, if I want to explicitly throw an exception, if I want to throw an exception manually. Okay. I know that this piece of code may have error. Okay. I know that this piece of code may have error. I already know this specific, suppose this specific path is incorrect. Okay. I know that this specific path is incorrect, and over there, I want to simply throw an exception at that specific point. Okay. I want to simply throw an exception at that specific point. Okay. But I want the remaining piece of code to always get executed. So in that case, what I will do, I will simply throw an exception over here. Over here, every time it will throw an error, but I want the happy piece of code to always get executed. Okay. So in those cases, we will be using this throw clause. Okay. I want to explicitly throw an exception over here. Okay, I want to explicitly throw an exception. This set of statement will never get executed because I have already threw an exception over here. Am I clear, right? Is it clear now? Just write whenever you want to throw an exception, just write throw new any exception, the name of exception. Okay, so in those cases, it will work only. Okay, so this is about your throw clause. So this is all about your throw clause. Clear? So with the help of this throw clause, we can either throw an unchecked exception or we can throw a checked exception also. Okay, anything you can do. Okay, either you can throw an unchecked exception or you can throw a checked exception. Okay, so this is an example of your throw clause. Next, is it clear for everyone, right? Is it clear for everyone? Any confusion over here? Just everyone write why in case if it is not clear, please let me know. Okay, next. So what we will do, as I told you, right, what is a throws clause then? So throw is that when we want to explicitly or manually throw an exception, we will use throw clause. Okay. Then what is a throws clause? So throws clause basically is such kind of a clause. Throws is basically such kind of a keyword which is used to declare an exception. Okay, when you want to declare an exception, then we will use this throws clause. What it will give you, it will give an information, it will give an idea to the programmer that there may occur an exception. So it is better to provide the exception handling code so that the general flow or the way the program is being written, that will work accordingly. And it is this kind of exception handling is basically being used in order to handle only for checked exception. If you want to handle only for checked exception, then in that case, we will be using this throws clause. For unchecked exception, generally we don't use this. Okay, generally we don't use this. So that is why we will only use for checked exception. In case of a throws keyword, again, I am repeating. Okay, it will give an information to the programmer. Okay, anywhere if you see any file program when I have written, you see automatically it is throwing you an IO exception because I have given a specific path, right? Okay, this path may be incorrect. Okay, so that is why the compiler knows that this path may be incorrect. So during the time of compilation only, if I'll remove this throws exception, you see it is giving an error over here. Why? Because there may be a case that an exception may occur. If I'll run this, it will give you a compile time error. You see, unhandled exception, because until and unless the compiler it's itself suggesting you to add a throws keyword. Okay. and it is used to provide only, it is used to throw, it is used to handle only for checked exception. Okay, generally why we cannot why for unchecked exception it will not work, because unchecked exception is under our control, right? We can easily collect our code. In case of an unchecked exception, we can easily correct our code, right? But in case of a checked exception, what happens? In case of checked exception, Java compiler wants to take a precaution that this path may be incorrect. So that it's better whenever you are working with file, it will always allow you to, it will always tell you to throw an exception, because Java compiler wants to take a precaution that there may be a case that this path may be incorrect. So it's better to add that add that exception inside that method level, or so that it will, so that it can work accordingly. Okay, so that is why every time in the method level this exception has been always added. Is it clear? Is it clear, right? So which kind of exception we can handle? Only for checked exception. In case of an unchecked exception, generally it is not required. Okay, in case of an unchecked exception, because unchecked exception is under our control, so we can easily handle that. Okay, but in case of a checked exception, that is not under our control. The Java compiler will automatically or Java compiler will automatically add that into the code. Okay, into your method level, it will automatically add. So that is why will always this is always being pre given by your compiler itself. Is it clear, right? Any confusion over here? Any confusion over here? Okay, now what is the thing which is being asked in interview, that what is the difference between throw and throws keyword? So can anyone tell me what is the difference between throw and throws? Can anyone tell me what is the difference between throw and throws? Yeah. So we can say that whenever we are writing a throws keyword, the throws is basically being declared at the method level itself. Whereas throw, when we are writing throw statement, so throw is always being declared inside the body of a method. Okay. What is a throw? Again, throw is used if you want to manually or explicitly throw an exception. You want to forcibly throw an exception. So in that case, you will be using throw clause. In case of a throws clause, there may be a case that the compiler want to take a precaution that there may be a case an exception may occur. So it's better to add a exception handling statement at the method level itself. So in that case, we will be using throws clause. Clear? In that case, we will be using throws clause. Okay, so these are the major reasons why we are the major difference between throw and throws. Okay, in case of a throw, we can handle both checked and unchecked exception. In case of a throws, so it's in case of a throws, we can only handle checked exception. Why we cannot handle unchecked exception? Because unchecked exception, we can easily modify the code and make our code run. Okay, so in that case, so that is why it is not required in that case. Okay, so these are the major difference between throw and throws. Is it clear for everyone? Any confusion? Okay, next is finally block then. Okay. Next is finally block. So in from exception handling, you can get this. What is the try catch block? What is throw clause? What is throws clause? What is the difference between throw and throws? Very, very important for interview. Okay, what is the difference between throw and throws keyword? Okay, throw and throws are basically keyword. So what is the difference between them? What is the difference between checked and unchecked exception? Examples of checked and unchecked exception. Okay, what is the difference between exception and error? That hierarchy java.lang.throwable has two section. Okay, so those all things are very important. What are the examples of error? Okay, so these things are very, very important for interview. Okay, and generally in case of a throws anyways, the compiler is giving you that, right? The compiler is handling itself, so you don't have to bother much about that. Any place where an exception will occur, the compiler will automatically add the throws keyword over here. Okay, so that is why any place if will do, automatically the compiler will add a throw statement over here. Okay, suppose I'm showing you another example. Suppose throws example 2. I wrote a plain line of code. Okay, int x is equal to 10. Okay, int y is equal to x plus 20. Suppose sys out y. Okay, next I'm doing over here, I'm just throwing an exception. Throw new arithmetic exception. Throw new arithmetic exception. Suppose e. Or I can do what? I can simply this. I'll write this. Okay, you are not eligible. Suppose. Okay, so whenever what will happen in these cases, okay, so in this case what will happen, suppose you have written this throws keyword, no, so as soon as you'll write this throw new, okay, so in that case in most of a case what will happen, so this is a unchecked exception. Suppose IU exception I have written. This is a checked exception, right? So as soon as you will throw a checked exception, so the compiler will come to know that in this method we are having an exception. So automatically it will add a throws declaration. It will automatically add a throws declaration. You see, automatically it will add a throws keyword over here. In case the compiler came to know that there is a checked exception can occur inside this, so compiler put a guard against that. Okay, the compiler will put a guard against that. Okay, so every time it will throw an exception in this statement. Okay, so that is the reason we are using throws clause. Okay, if I remove this, so this is not required. Okay, if I'll remove this, so this is not required. Okay, if I remove this is not required. But as soon as the compiler came to know that there is an exception occurring over here, as soon as the compiler came to know that there is an exception occurring over here, the compiler will automatically tell you to add a throws keyword over here, so that this will get handled. Okay, so that is the reason we are using this throws keyword. Okay, you don't have to do anything, the compiler will itself add it to this. Earlier there were that when IntelliSense was not there inside an Eclipse, so that time we used to face issue, but now the compiler will itself put a guard against these all unhandled statements. Okay, next, the finally clause, the last one. So what is a finally block? Suppose you have written a code. Okay, you are trying to fetch a data from a database and want to pull that data into your automation script. Okay, now what is the step for that? The step is you will you will write a connection statement so that the connection with the database is established. You will execute the set of queries so that you can fetch the data. Suppose you have written a select query, so from that select query you will get a specific set of a statement. You will put that set of a statement into a result set, and then you will execute, or then you will execute your automation script. Once the entire execution is being completed, then you are closing the connection with the database. These are the steps. No, first we'll connect to the database, you will execute the statement, you will get the data, you will close the connection. Now suppose, now suppose you executed one query that is a long running SQL. Suppose by mistake or there's a huge table being present, you did a select star and it is taking suppose 40 minutes or 15 minutes to execute, and after even after executing for 40 or 50 minutes, you are not getting the result, right? So but without that, that is the first step. Suppose that is the first step of your code. Without that, the next set of a statement will not be able to get executed. Okay, so that means whenever you have connected your Java code with the database, always you have to close the connection. Otherwise what will happen, if suppose the database is common for 10 people, right? Suppose you have acquired a lock onto that database, so other people will not be able to use the database for that much period of time. Okay, for that much period of time, the other people will not be able to use that specific database because you have executed a long running SQL. It has it is going on executing for a long period of time. Okay, and after 20 minutes also it didn't work and it gave an error to you. It gave an exception to you. So in that case, what we will do, that this all set of statement, okay, these all set of statements, suppose you want to close a connection with the database, you want to do what, you want to write some cleanup code, you want to close a specific file. Okay, so these all set of a statement we will always put under the finally block. Okay. So finally block is basically that set of a statement, or finally block is basically that kind of a block which will always get executed, whether an exception is occurring into your program or an exception is not occurring into your program. That set of a code is always getting that set of code will always get executed. Suppose I am giving you an example. You acquired a lock onto the database. Okay, you have written a code that will connect with your user ID password. You have connected your code to the database. Okay, after you have connected your code to the database, the connection was successful. After that, what happened? There was an exception occurred over here, and due to which you cannot close your connection with the database. So what will happen? You have acquired a lock onto the database, you are not able to close the connection with the database. Suppose there are 10 more people who wants to access the same database, so they will not be able to do that. So what we will do, if suppose an exception is occurring inside your code, the setup statement to close the connection with the database we will put under the finally block. Why we will put under the finally block? So that the setup statement will always get executed, whether an exception is occurring or it does not occurring. That does not mean to you. Anything you have written under finally block, that will always get executed. Am I clear to all of you? Any confusion over here? Any confusion related to finally? Any confusion related to finally? Let us see an example. Okay. So what we will do over here, I'll write a small piece of code. Okay, I'll write a small piece of code. Int x is equal to 25 by 0. Suppose I'll write sys out x. Okay, so this is a piece of code where exception will always occur. You see, divide by 0. So how to handle this? We'll write try block. Okay, I'll write catch exception e. I'll write sys out exception caught. Okay, I'll write plus of e so that I'll get the message. Okay, now this is there, right? Suppose a set of statement is being there. Sys out I am the code to close connection with database. This is the set of statement. Okay. So what will happen in case you have not written this try catch block? So obviously this set of statement will never get executed. Okay. Now you have handled the try catch block. So now it is getting executed always. Okay. I am able to close the connection with the database. Okay. So what we will do, this set of statement, okay, this, suppose in this case I have not handled the exception. In this case I have not handled the exception. Okay. Over here I haven't handled this exception. I haven't handled the exception. So anyways, this piece of code is, that means suppose you acquired a lock to the database. You have written a code over here to acquire to connect with the database. To connect with database, you have written the code over here. After you have connected to the database, you are executing this set of statement. You are executing this set of statement. But at this point, as you came to know, right? So this statement is getting failed. So exception is occurring over here. Since this statement is getting failed, so you are not able to close the connection with the database because this set of code is not getting executed, right? If I'll run this, what will happen? The exception occurred, and due to which you are not able to close the connection with the database. You are executing a set of statement. Due to an exception is, you connected your code with the database. You started executing your code. As soon as you start executing your code, an exception occurred, due to which you are not able to close the connection with the database. So what will happen? There will be an open connection with your name with the database. So suppose at a time only one people can access the database. Suppose, okay, generally it does not occur, but suppose at a time only one people can access the database. So what will happen? No one will be, since the connection is still not closed, so no one will be able to connect to that specific database. So in these cases, what we will do, the code where the code to close the connection, we will put under this finally block. Okay. What we will do, the code wherein the code to do all this, we will do what? We will put under this finally block. Okay. We will put that set of a code inside this finally block. Okay, we will put that set of a code under this finally block. So it does not matter whether an exception is occurring or it does not, it occurs or it does not occur. This set of a statement inside this finally block will always get executed. Okay, the set of a statement inside this finally block will always get executed. So suppose over here I have written the other piece of code. Okay, so finally alone will not work. Whenever you are whenever you have whenever you are using this finally, you always have to add a try catch statement. Okay, you always have to add a try catch statement. Now whether suppose over here exception occurred, right? So the set of statements inside the finally is always getting executed. Okay, suppose an exception does not occur over here, still the set of statement and written inside finally will get executed. Okay, so whether an exception is occurring or it does not occur, that does not mean to you the set of statement which is written under finally will always get executed. Is it clear for everyone? Okay, so what we will do, we will put all the different types of cleanup code, the connection to close a connection with the database. So everything we will put under this finally block. Okay, is it clear? Now suppose you have written this catch block over here, right? So what you will do, suppose I commented this catch block. Okay, I commented this catch block. That means over here you have exception is occurring, right? Over here exception is occurring, but you are not catching that exception. So what we can do with a finally block should always be the presence of catch block is not mandatory. Okay, when we are writing a finally block, the presence of catch block is not mandatory. Even if catch block is not being present, over here you see exception is occurring, right? Exception is occurring over here. So what will happen? you see the code inside this finally is always getting executed. This piece of code is not getting executed. You see, the other piece of code is not getting executed, but the statement written inside finally is always getting executed. Is it clear? Or suppose you have written a catch block, okay, but over here arithmetic exception is occurring. You just wrote null pointer exception. Okay, you wrote over here as array index out of bound exception, array index out of bounds, suppose. Clear? You wrote this inside the catch block. So when you are executing this one, you see exception is occurring, right? It was an arithmetic exception. You have written statement only to catch array index out of bound exception. You have not written anything related to arithmetic exception. So arithmetic exception, it will not be able to catch. Okay, but the set of statement under finally is always getting executed. Understood? So what is a finally clause? Finally block basically means that the set of code written inside the finally block will always get executed, whether an exception has occurred, whether an exception has not occurred, that does not mean anything to it. The set of statement will always get executed, whatever you have written under the finally block. When you are writing a finally block, it should be always surrounded by a try block or a try catch block. Am I clear to all? Any confusion over here? Okay, all the three cases I showed you. Case one, an exception is occurring, but it is handled by the catch block. Still, finally block is executing. Case two, catch block is not present. I have just written a try block. I don't know which kind of exception may occur. So I have not written anything inside this catch block. Still, finally block is getting executed. Suppose I don't know case three. Suppose I don't know which kind of exception may occur. I have written the statement that array index out of bound exception may occur, but arithmetic exception occurred, because in the when a real time project, when you will be working, you will not come to know that which kind of exception can occur. Okay, so what we will do, whatever exception may occurring, that is not our concern. The code which I want to always get executed, I will put that code under finally block. Am I clear to all? Any confusion over here? Please tell me. You can unmute yourself and tell me. Any confusion, anyone? Akshit, Anusha, Ashwini, Chinmay, any confusion? Divya, Kiran, am I good? Is it clear for all, right? No, I am good. Okay, okay. Okay, then. Yeah. The next set of assignments I will be sharing tomorrow. Still, I haven't received assignments from any of you. Okay. The next set of assignments I'll be sharing tomorrow where I'll give assignment on the basis of string. Okay. Clear? Okay, then. Yeah. Thanks. Can we tell one assignment? Can we tell Miss Anusha?
Hello.
Yeah, tell me.
I have a doubt in one assignment. How to write the means how to execute that frequency when I don't understand that logical.
Which frequency?
How many times that letter is present in your name?
Oh, that I will discuss. Okay, when we will start with map, no? So I'll discuss that frequency of each of the letters present in your name. Okay, so that we will generally do with the help of map.
Map.
Okay, okay.
But
That
it
I
can be done with the normal.
Yeah, but in interview, if you write that code, no, so they will not. They will ask you to write into a different way always. Okay, because that piece of code, if you do with a normal approach, no, it becomes very complex. If you do with map, it becomes very easy. So that is why, okay, all the frequency related code we will do with map, okay, because in the interview also they are not expecting you to write directly with string, okay.
Okay, and if I share the assignment without that, that is fine, na?
Yeah,
No.
you can share your assignment without that. It is fine.
And
Okay.
this try catch,
Yeah.
I understood, but still we will have to revise once. Means
Yeah, obviously you have to revise, right? Without you have to study yourself, otherwise you'll not be able to understand. Okay.
yeah. If any doubt, I'll let you know.
Okay, yes, sure.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, yes. Thanks, Anusha. Okay, yeah. Thank you, everyone. Any questions, anyone? Are we good to close?
Saurabh, one
Yeah,
thing.
tell me. Yeah, tell me.
Suppose we are using like try catch block over here,
Yeah.
and if we don't use finally, still the statement I am code to close connection will be executed.
No. As I told you, right? Suppose you are not writing finally over here, you're asking, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, just 1 minute. Yes. Okay. So suppose you wrote like this. If I'll run this, you see the exception is occurring. So this set of statement is not getting executed. Okay, because we over here arithmetic exception was occurring. We handled only array index out of bound exception. So that is why this set of statement is not working. If I
If
include this under finally, then only it will get executed. Okay.
no, if we at catch if we handle like arithmetic exception, still the fine.
No, then in that case, we already handled that exception. So obviously it will work.
So then there is no need of finally block in this case.
Yeah, in that case, if you run this, if I'll comment this, so in that case, it will anyways work because you're already handling that exception. No? Okay, you see it is working. Okay, but in those cases where, as I told you, right, all the three cases it will work. Suppose you have not mentioned any catch block, or suppose you have mentioned in the catch block to handle a different type of exception, or you have handled that exception every like this, the third case where everything is written successfully. So in all the three cases, the statement under finally block will get executed. Okay,
Okay.
is it clear, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, this is a happy path where the exception is getting handled, so it is working fine. Okay, case 2, you have not written this catch block, suppose. Okay, in that case also, what is happening in that case also, the finally block is getting executed. You see the others, piece of code is not getting executed, only the statement written inside finally is getting executed. Okay, this is case 2. Case 3 is what you have written a catch block, but you have written array index out of bound exception, suppose. Okay, you have written array index out of bound exception.
Okay.
Out of bounds. Okay, so in that case, what will happen? Still finally will get executed. Okay, you see, is it clear, right?
Yeah.
Okay, then yes. Okay, then yeah. Any questions, anyone else? Okay, then we are good to close the session. Bye bye. Done, right? Okay, yeah.